So, let's dive into the work of the scholar and mystic Andrew Harvey. We're going to tackle a huge question that, frankly, anyone on a spiritual path has to grapple with. In a world that feels like it's in constant crisis, how do you balance your own inner work with the desperate need for action out there?
You know, a lot of us get into spiritual practice to find some calm, right? To find our center in the middle of a storm. But then you look around, you see the news, the environmental issues, the political chaos, and you can't help but ask yourself, is working on my own inner peace really enough? Or is it kind of just a way to hide, a retreat from problems that actually need to be solved?
And this is where it gets tricky. You have these incredible spiritual masters, like Sri Aurobindo, who taught that the greatest thing you can do for the world is to transform yourself first. The idea is, you change from the inside and that ripples out. But Andrew Harvey comes along and says, hang on. In this specific moment, with the planet in so much danger, that approach, by itself, just isn't going to cut it anymore.
So what's the answer? How do we build a bridge between these two worlds? Well, Harvey proposes something he calls sacred activism. And the key here is that it's not a choice. It's not inner work or outer work. It's a fusion. It's about creating a whole new kind of warrior, a spiritual warrior who is both deeply contemplative and radically engaged with the world.
So what exactly is sacred activism? Think of it like a marriage between two incredibly powerful forces. On one side, you have that deep spiritual work, and on the other, you have focused, wise, and radical action out in the world. The whole point is that they're supposed to feed each other, creating a force for change that can actually last.
The most important thing here is where your action is coming from. A lot of what we see is action from the ego. It's fueled by rage, by despair, and while that passion is important, it almost always leads to burnout, fighting amongst allies, and just total exhaustion. Sacred activism is different. It's action that comes from spirit. It's plugged into a divine source, and that's where you get the compassion, the patience, and the incredible stamina you need to stay in this for the long haul.
And Harvey gives us this amazing way to think about it. It's like breathing. The inner work, your meditation, your prayer, whatever it is, that's breathing in. That's where you connect to the source and fill yourself up. The action out in the world, that's breathing out. You're giving away everything you just received in service. And when you get tired and burned out, what do? You have to breathe in again, deeply. It's this constant life-giving rhythm.
Okay, so you might be thinking, that's great, but I'm not the type to be marching in the streets. And that's a totally fair point. Harvey is really clear that sacred activism isn't just for extroverts. In fact, some of the most powerful work can be done from a place of total quiet and contemplation. So let's get practical and look at some of these tools.
First up is something really powerful. It's a Tibetan practice called Tonglen. The whole idea behind it is that you learn to take in the suffering of the world and then breathe out peace and light and transformation. It's a way to face all that pain head-on, but without letting it crush you.
Here's how Harvey describes doing it. Let's say you're meditating on some destructive force, like corporate greed. You would literally visualize breathing in all of that negativity, that insanity, as a big black ball of smoke. And you breathe it right into your heart, which you imagine is like this vast open sky full of brilliant light. And as that black smoke enters the light of your heart, it just dissolves. And then you consciously send back the exact opposite. You breathe out light and truth and peace to the very people and systems causing the harm. So you're not just taking on negativity, you're actively transforming it into a force for healing on a deep energetic level.
And Tonglen isn't the only tool in the box. There are other really powerful practices too. One is using a simple prayer or mantra, like Maranatha, which means Lord come, to basically call down divine energy into the world's biggest messes. Another one is to completely change how you watch the news. Instead of just sinking into despair, you can watch with what he calls an open sacred heart, and just consciously send out rays of strength to the people you see suffering on the screen.
Okay, so if these tools are out there, and the need is obviously so huge, what's stopping us? Why is it so hard to actually step up and do this stuff? Well, according to Harvey, it all comes down to our shadows, those unconscious fears, patterns, and addictions that keep us stuck. And before we can look at the world, we really have to look inside, at the personal shadows that are running the show within each of us. Think of them as these little internal saboteurs, these hidden patterns that keep us feeling small, distracted, and ultimately pretty powerless. So Harvey points to 5 big ones. There's narcissism, which can even be a spiritual kind of narcissism, where my path becomes all about my enlightenment. Then you've got the huge one, addiction to comfort, that deep unwillingness to risk the nice, stable life we've built. There's the simple, raw fear of standing up and what might happen if we do. Then there's something he calls woundology, where we get so attached to our own trauma story that we always feel too broken to help anyone else. And finally, the golden shadow. That's when we see how powerful someone else is and project all of our own divine potential onto them, which lets us completely off the hook.
But this isn't just about us as individuals. Right now, there are these huge collective shadows being cast over all of us, affecting the entire human psyche.
And these global shadows, man, they are intense. It often starts with disbelief, that feeling that things can't really be this bad, right? And when that cracks, denial kicks in because the truth is just too painful to look at. From there, it's easy to fall into this paralyzing dread about everything that's happening. That can lead to a really radical disillusionment, just losing all faith in humanity. And at the very bottom of that spiral is a kind of collective death wish, a secret, unconscious desire to just check out and not have to deal with what's coming. So what on earth do we do about all this? Well, for the smaller, everyday shadows, the jealousy, the pettiness, the little things, Harvey has this simple 3-step plan. First, just become conscious. Just notice when it's happening. Second, disidentify from it. Realize that little storm of emotion is not who you really are. It's just your ego doing its thing. And third, treat it with compassion and a sense of humor. Laugh at how absurd it is. The less seriously you take it, the less power it has over you. And this really gets to the heart of it all. Those amazing spiritual experiences, those moments of bliss and connection, they aren't some kind of cosmic vacation or a reward you're supposed to hoard for yourself. They're fuel. They are training. They are meant to forge you into someone who is strong enough to face the world as it really is, not to help you escape from it.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. How do we actually put all this together and walk this path day in and day out? How do we become that spiritual warrior and stay resilient when things are so incredibly hard?
Harvey gives us 4 final keys to staying resilient. First, you have to surrender the fruits of your action. Do the work with all your heart, but let go of your ego's need for a specific outcome. Second, cultivate a deep sense of detachment and patience. Real change happens on a divine timeline, not ours. Third, and this one is huge, find your people, your heart friends. You cannot do this alone. And finally, you just have to trust. Trust that if you offer yourself up to this work, you will be guided and you will be given the strength you need.
At the end of the day, this path is a deep, personal calling. It's asking us to hold both the mystic's heartbreak and the activist's hope at the same time. So the real question isn't whether this path is real, but how each of us is going to choose to walk it. And maybe the first step is to look inward and ask yourself, which shadow is calling out for my attention right now? Which one am I ready to face first?